things and appealing to those who sit in those positions, because we do sit in some of those positions now. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you could pick a speck out. Now we're sprinkled. And I think we need to use our power in those positions to further not just our agenda, because it's not a black-white thing. It's not a color. Race doesn't exist. Like, race is a social construct. It's not an actual thing. All right, so it has very little to do with that. The things that we create as brown people impact and better everyone. Let's make sure that that messaging gets out there.
All right, Steve, I'm gonna toss it over to you. Legacy, right? What does that mean to you, and how do we build a better legacy for African Americans in this country? We look at, I'm gonna just say, a business like Ebony and Jet that was on every kitchen table, every living room in every black household in this country. How do we build that legacy again?
This is great. Thank you for building this platform. I've ordered your book on Amazon. It's not here yet, but thank you for having us and curating this moment. I appreciate you. This has been fulfilling. I feel very spiritually enriched, enhanced, encouraged, poured into. I just had to give you your props while I was still on the stage.
No doubt.
You brought up Lusters. I want to kind of pivot. When you said Lusters and how we could potentially support her, I want to talk about the fact that a lot of these companies get to a certain level of success financially, and then they sell their IP because success to them looks like selling and going mainstream. And I want to talk about, when we're talking about legacy, I want to talk about preservation, protecting what it is that God has given you. Success can look like a myriad of things to you, but success should not equal selling out to mainstream. We see a couple hair care companies right now that have sold to white corporations, and now they're in lawsuits as a result. So you have to be intentional. You have to move by intention, which is a chapter in this book, by the way. You have to be intentional. You have to decide what it is and what you will do and what you won't do for success. If God has given you something, fiercely protect that idea, because that is your legacy. Do not put that into hands of somebody who can destroy your legacy by diluting the products, by simply not understanding the culture. These people are culture vultures, and we've got to guard our culture. We've got to be guardians of the culture. If not, if we won't stand for something, well, hello? So I'm done on that. It just irritated me. I'm so glad you brought it up in that direction, because if God has given you IP, that you have to guard that situation with your life, because success to me doesn't mean money. It honestly does mean having longevity and having something that I can pass on to the next generation.
And when you really look at it, African American culture is the #1 export in this country. We export hip hop, jazz, the whole nine to the rest of the world. But yet and still, we reap the least from its benefits from it. Quentin, let's talk about legacy real quick.
So I look at legacy in a very simple format. I was once told it's never about you. It's about those that come before you and those that come after you. And so I think about my father often, who was murdered when I was 15 years old. I'm his namesake. Did you earn your name? Did you earn the right to walk in those shoes? How have you contributed to all the sacrifices? How are you operating in that same grace, the pathways he created for you? But not stopping there. We mentioned this earlier, Steve. Providing pathways for other people. It don't mean a damn thing if you sitting there and taking it to the grave with you. Open up doors for others, creating that ethos system. So if I'm at a financial institution that could fund projects of my brother here, black owned.
Give me the money.
Write the check.
Exactly.
Let's make it happen.
And keeping it black, promoting black, but also developing other black leaders, because good leaders are just not good leaders. They produce other good leaders. You see the fruits of their leaderships. So it's having interns that come. It's having staffers who went to my HBCU. It's having that ethos system of people building each other up, because we lift as we climb truly. And that's what legacy is to me.
No doubt. All right, we got 2 minutes left. Quentin, you got anything else you want to let the world know about you and what's happening with Wells Fargo?
Wells Fargo is a great institution, which I am forever grateful for. We have to operate in the doors that are open to us. I'll say that. I want to backtrack on something Steve said. What he didn't mention is I came to that panel because through Wells Fargo, there was a client who said, hey, I'm coming I'm speaking on this panel, you should come. You never know what doors of opportunity are available to you if you're just willing to walk through it by faith. And that door opened up a bigger door, which contributed to my portfolio at Wells Fargo. So being open to those doors, but Wells Fargo is one of the greatest places in the world because it's given me a platform to be authentically me. They don't make me water myself down. They let me be true, authentically a black man in black America, and I'm forever appreciative of that organization.
Dopeness.
Plug them, brother. They paying you well. Plug them.
Wells Fargo, okay?
Steve, any last words? Is your book in Walmart? I'm just asking.
Unfortunately, it's only online in Walmart. I know my daddy is frowning in heaven about that, but it's available online in Walmart, in stores and online on Target. But my final note is I'm so happy to be here. If you're on social media, you can follow me. I am Steve Jones. I ask for your prayers as we head to Los Angeles with Wells Fargo, that we have a successful event with the cast of Girlfriends and Being Mary Jane in the game.
I need some tickets.
I got you, bro. The event is October 1st. Anybody who want to come, it's a free event. Pull up on us. And then lastly, of course, please buy this book, Hollywood Confidential, 12 Secrets of Becoming the Star of Your Own Life, Steve Jones. Please support this. When you support me, you're not just supporting me, you're supporting black-owned authors, and you're telling the world that black storytellers are needed and necessary. And do this. If you don't buy it for me, buy it for my father. Shout out to my mom. I love you.
And truth be told, that's my copy, so I need that signed.
No, I'm holding this all day. I'm gonna ship you another one.
Russell, anything you wanna close out with?
I want to remind everyone that what's for you is for you. And there is nothing that anyone or anything can do to take that away. That's God-given. God has his plans for all of us. And each and every step we take, whether it's seemingly forward, backward, or to the side, is for a purpose. Take the time, take a deep breath, understand where you are, if you can, why you are where you are, and then what's the next step forward. Nothing, any and everything that's for you is for you, and that cannot be taken from you. So I know we're in a tough space right now. It's a tough living climate, forget political climate, but God.
Well,
God.
So yeah, I just wanted to leave that with you guys.
And I want to say this before we close. We have been in tougher situations in history, and we have prevailed. And so right now is our moment. That's why this is called Made for This Moment. God put us here for this particular reason. That's why we wrote this book, Project 2030, so that we can have a foundational piece for the agenda for Black America. This is not going to give you all of the answers, but what it will do is allow you to help build the structure for a better Black America. So we got books for sale over here. We on Amazon as well, on all formats, the whole nine, both books, Hustlers MBA as well as Project 2030. And I just want to say, brothers, I definitely appreciate, we only spent a short amount of time with each other, but the reality of it is that I think that we forged a bond, and hopefully everybody here has got something from us. All right, thank you.
thank y'all.
Appreciate you.
We was getting a sign like, get out of here.
Sure.
By any chance, you have a car on you?
Right over here.
Oh yeah, we're
I got you. No problem, man. Thank you for your message today.
Are you on LinkedIn too?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you.
I get it.
On IG.
Okay, what is it? Which platform do you want? LinkedIn? Both, yeah, IG and LinkedIn.
Greetings, 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 everybody. We're coming right back with Tamika Mallory. If you guys can come back to your seats, you're in for a treat. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend. We got a legend, an activist, an author coming to the stage in a couple minutes. Tamika is now. It's so organized.
So what?
Tamika, the famous activist, is next. She's coming. Please tell people to take this.
And what you doing?
Moderating the conversation. Okay, guys, we're getting ready to start. If you guys could take your seats. The next conversation is coming up. Give it up for my friend, activist, author, dope black woman, Tamika Mallory.
Hey, hey, hey.
Welcome.
This man smells good up here. That's what I'm talking about. Look,
What's your name? I'm buying your book.
Uh-oh.
What's your name? I'm there. We're there. You were so participatory this last event. I love you.
that is so funny. You like,
Man,
I'm gonna buy her book.
you look like Olivia Pope or somebody. Like, what's going on with these?
I went deep in the closet to pull the professional clothes out for the Congressional Black Caucus ALC.
That's how we represent.
Yes.
Listen, I know that you are to be respected. So this next comment I'm about to make is very respectfully, but I mean, we appreciate the activism, but girl, you fine. You fine as you want to be. Hello.
Thank you.
Hello, just very well put together.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
All right, that's it. We're going to keep it moving. I actually wrote out questions because this is honestly like a dream come true. You know, when I got to meet you, I told you
You did.
what an honor it was to be in your presence. And so they are recording this, so hopefully we'll be able to share this information with our people on social and get the word out about this amazing project.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
with that being said, I'm pulling up my notes. You ready?
I am ready.
Here we go.
All right.
Activist, two-time author, and a dope black woman. Many of us came to know your work in 2020 when you spoke out in support of the murder of our beloved brother George Floyd. But your activism has been rooted in community since you were a teenager. Looking back, what pivotal moment made you realize this was your life's calling?
Thank you so much for that question. I feel like there were many moments, and I'm sort of like, I think the best example is to use the feeling that pastors say they experience, right? I've had many pastors say that they tried to run from the calling. And so it's sort of like you just know that it's on you. And I have attempted many times to walk away from this work because black folks are hard to deal with, right? Like black folks trying to organize us, it's not easy. Because of the trauma that we have experienced, we find it very comfortable to beat up on one another.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the barometer for trust sometimes can be so low in all of us. I feel that way. I'm sure other people out here who have felt that way as well. And so at times, it's almost like we eat away at one another. And then the beast that we're fighting against is so diabolical that who wants to get up every day knowing that you're going out to fight a literal war?
Not me.
Right? And so there are many times when I have felt like, that's it, my skills are transferable. I can go do anything else that I want to do. I can organize anything, not just a rally, a protest, or a campaign, but I can go and organize within a corporation. I can go organize within any institution because it is my nature to put things together and take it from point A to point Z. But it seems like this work stays on me through the night. It stays on me when I am enjoying myself. I oftentimes see my family members and friends. They'll be out on social media having a great time. And I'll be saying, why didn't anybody invite me? I wanted to go to the shindig too. And they say, well, nobody wants to hear you talk about registering to vote while we trying to twerk in the club. And I like to twerk, but they like, yeah, but you don't twerk the whole time. You want to ask us about what happened with
You want to twerk and work.
Yeah, you want to twerk and work. That's my thing. I am the twerk and work girl. And, that just has led me to understand many times over that there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. That this is the work that I am called to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And moreover, I've gotten to the point now where I'm considered to be so, what's the word they use? Controversial. That's what they say about me. That even if I wanted to go work at, Saks Fifth Avenue, I can't
It's
get
impossible.
the job. Exactly.
Now, I'll say this. You've been described as one of the most powerful voices of our generation.
Wow.
How do you balance the pressure of being in the public eye, but also stay grounded with the community that you serve?
Yeah. Well, the community will ground you.
That part.
The community takes care of grounding you. Because you can show up thinking you super cute, and they'll be like, listen, the real work is not cute, actually. And I thank God for my mama and my daddy. My mom and dad are two very different personalities. My father is my PR person, my greatest supporter. Anything that when I got in trouble as a little girl, he'd be the one behind me, like, it's gonna be okay. Like, he'd be trying to break it up between my mom and me. He's always been my defender. My mother, on the other hand, is like, I will whoop your ass right now. But my mom, that balance was important because my mom continuously reminded me that you're here today and gone tomorrow, that people will build you up to tear you down. That the only thing I am responsible for in this life is how I make another person feel. And that my obligation is to take every opportunity that God has afforded me with and allow someone else to enjoy the fruits of that labor. And I accept that with 100% of me. And I believe that's what keeps me grounded, because I realize that I'm blessed to have the consciousness that I have chosen to care about my community. I think it is a blessing. Yeah, sometimes it feels like a curse, but it is a blessing to know that what you see before you is not right, and then to have the courage to stand up and do something about it.
Woo! I feel like we at church service. Can I get an amen? You wrote a new book called I Live to Tell the Story.
I did.
Please talk to us about the inspiration. What made you decide to tell that story? And what do you hope readers gain from this new book?
Well, I didn't think that a memoir was something that you do at the time. I was 42 when I started. I'm 45 now. So this has been sort of a 3-year process. You know all about this, about these crazy thoughts that I'm gonna write this second book. Oh my, you gotta tell us about your multiple books. Like, you didn't stop. I don't even know how that, once you write one book, you say never, ever, never, 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 ever, ever again. But here we go again. And it is because people believed in me. So I didn't believe that a memoir is a 42-year-old thing. I thought you were supposed to wait until you're about 70 so that you could tell the truth about who got on your nerves and who stepped on your foot. And at that point, it's like, who gonna check me, boo?
They won't even be here to check you.
Maybe not, right? So that was not my comfort zone. My first book is about America. It is a book that was inspired by a viral speech that I gave after George Floyd was murdered. And that is my comfort zone, while the book writing was hard even in that process, because we were living in Kentucky fighting for Breonna Taylor under heavy police surveillance during a pandemic. So you can imagine the challenges of sitting down every day to write and to be inspired and to experience the work while trying to write about the prescription for America. And so, but that again was more of my comfort zone. And when my publishing team came back and said, we don't want another book about the movement, we need a book about you, I was like, y'all must be out your minds. Like, I'm not going to tell my personal story. And the one thing I know about Black women is that if I didn't tell the truth in that book, y'all would have been saying, what is this mess? What is this? You would never have accepted anything other than my truth. If you're gonna tell it or don't tell it at all.
Well.
And so I had to sit with what it looks like to be extremely vulnerable. And then what are those stories in my life that, while they were hard as a rock, I know that they are exactly what another woman, man, child, teenager, college student needs to hear while they're on their own professional journey and their life journey in general. And so I Live to Tell the Story is my story. And it is as true as I could possibly get about what I have experienced in this life. And so I'm really, really proud of that little book that's over there. What I am most grateful for and excited about is the amount of people who have been over at that table telling me that they already read the book and what the content has done for them since I've been at this conference. That's what makes it good. That's when you know you've done it, when people come to you and say, I got something from this book that has changed my life.
Beautiful. Now, you've stood at the intersection of social justice, politics, and the culture. What role do you see entertainment and Hollywood playing in sustaining movements for social justice today, or for justice today?
Yeah, well, I talked to influencers and celebrities and very high net worth value individuals all the time. Some of them are my friends. We hang out. I go to their homes, but you know, everything is not on the gram, right? And so some people you would never have met. You would say, "Oh, really? That's your friend?" But they are actually people I'm very close to, because many people who have great celebrity and have had great success, we think that they're not paying attention, but they are, right? And they know what's happening in our society and in our world. And what I realize is in this moment, so many of them are quiet and afraid to speak out about what they see and what is terrorizing not just their families, but also threatening their own success. People have businesses that are not receiving the same support because Black women don't have jobs. And when Black women don't have jobs, contracts, and opportunities, we know that the entire economy takes a hit, right? So many of them are watching their family members be pushed out of the workforce and therefore asking for money, or maybe not at all. But you know, it doesn't matter how high you get in life. Your mama's always on the phone to my child. Did you know about so-and-so and what's going on? So they are aware, but no one wants to be a target. But what I've been saying to my celebrity and entertainment friends in this moment is that there's going to be nowhere to run. We are all going down together, or we're all going to rise together. And they are going to have to be brave enough to use their influence and their money, whichever one they choose, to support the work that has to be done. And I know that it doesn't seem like it in this moment for some. They think that they will be able to escape. But there is not going to be an escape, because what is being done in this moment and what fascism and authoritarianism causes and what it seeks to do is to silence people's right to speak the truth. Look at what just happened to Jimmy Kimmel, and you can't just leave Jimmy Kimmel as a white man in a vacuum when just days before Karen Attiah, a writer for the Washington Post, was fired as well for just speaking or just posting someone else's words exactly as they said them. And so we are under an attack that is going to have a ripple effect downwards and a trickle effect upwards to every single person, no matter where you sit, because these people want to see that white men are the only ones who continue to maintain power and wealth. And as long as that is their goal, our communities are being threatened. And at some point, everybody with a microphone, with a camera, with followers or not, you can have 1 or you can have 1 million. You're going to be required to stand up and to speak out.
Absolutely. It's church, y'all. It's church.
Or to pay up. Or to pay up.
One of the two.
You know, because that's a thing, right? I think about Harry Belafonte. He was obviously extremely vocal, but the one thing that Harry Belafonte did was to support the movement. He made sure that Dr. King had money to travel, money to be independent, but also money for his family to survive. And so that in and of itself is a window that is open to folks who may be listening or thinking, what can I do? Because I can't get out there, right? Like, I haven't lost my job and I have too many people in my family to take care of and to support and my community. So right now, what are my options? Your option is to make sure that you give to Black organizations as if you are tithing to your church.
And I would even encourage you to begin to support those organizations and not the church. The church is going to be fine. Hear me out. Hear me out.
Right there.
Praise God, Pastor Q. Praise God. But find somebody who you can tithe into just as much, because we need that support. Now, you brought up
Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah.
Okay, on the Black church piece, you know, I think that the Black church is going to it is in this moment the most independent institution within the Black community. And I agree with you that we have to look at balancing, because we give to God and give to the church and give to a building fund more than we do to actually building our communities sometimes, depending on the institution. institution. So what I would suggest is if you go to a church that's not in the streets, like some of the pastors that we see around here today, if you do not have a pastor that is walking the walk, talking the talk, and doing the real work, switch your church. You can go on to Philly and get with Antonio Anderson down here.
And if you're at a church that is not speaking about political issues, that's probably not the church for
Not
you.
the church
They need
for
to have a
you.
definitive stance on what is going on in the streets. The church has always run synonymous with the struggle if you look back. So if you're not at a church that is pushing you, encouraging you to be part of the fight, that might not be a church for you. I want to say one more thing as we have to wrap. One more thing. We are now we're witnessing the biggest, most successful boycott since the bus boycott, Montgomery boycott bus situation. Help me. You led Montgomery bus boycott. They rushing me on the time. I'm trying to rush. Let me just take my time. Let me get this last question out. It's very important. You have led one of the most successful situations, boycotts since then. Just talk to us about where we are now and what we are to do. That's it.
You guys don't need anything from Target. Not one thing. Don't worry about Target. You can find it somewhere else. We made Target Target. Y'all remember when Michelle Obama said that Target was Target and black women went there and stayed there 4 hours and buy stuff that we don't even need, right? And black men know to drop you off and then swing back around and pick you up in a little while. Because we supported that brand when they said that they stand with our community and that they support diversity, equity, and inclusion. If I had more time, I would remind you that just recently, Cracker Barrel almost had to close their doors when them white folks got mad because they took the cracker and the barrel off of that logo.
Well,
We, as black folks in this nation, have to realize that our economic power, $1.4 trillion, is our voice. And so when someone disrespects your community, you don't gotta argue. You really don't even have to protest. Just take your money, put it back in your pocket, and hold it until they remember who you are and the power that you have. We have helped to bring Target stock down to the lowest in 5 years, and even in history, they are seeing extreme loss. Do not stop, don't retreat, and just know that flexing that muscle is the most powerful weapon that we have.
amen. Yeah. Give it up for Tamika Mowry. You all can. Are you headed to sign books now, or what's next for you?
You're going to sign.
I'm going to sign books. You guys can purchase her book, I Live to Tell a Story, right now at her booth. You can purchase my book called Hollywood Confidential, 12 Secrets to Success. Give it up for Adia who put this all together.
Yes.
She's amazing.
Yes. Come on
Where are we
in front.
headed for my
Come
book?
on in front. Adia, come on in
I'm
front
going to be
here.
at 900 selling
Come on,
books.
come on.
Again, my book is called
Black
Hollywood
women.
Confidential, 12 Secrets to Becoming a Star of Your Own Life.
That's what
And
I'm
this is a star who made all of this happen. If Tamika Mowry is telling you to come up and get your flowers, come get your flowers.
Tell the folks what to do. It's okay.
Okay, so we're going to ask those who are coming for Tamika Malvy's book to please go to her booth. She's not going to be doing signing right now. She will be doing signing later. She's actually up on the stage right now. We have an esteemed panel that she's going to be joining. And for those who are going to be purchasing Steve Jones' book, to please go over to booth 900. And we're going to do some book signings
That's
there.
my new promo, Nandy.
you.
We appreciate you, girl.
Thank you.
I hope to be meeting you guys over at my table. Enjoy this next panel. God bless.
My brother.
Thank you.
We got another service.
How you doing? Yes, it's already.
I did. 8:45. Are you okay?
Is it already on?
But you was able to get in there. Okay, so you good. You get it signed? Okay. Well, tell them to leave the label and I'll sign it as soon as I finish. You will swing back out. Let's put the sticky inside.
You doing okay?
I'm good. Today's today.
Nice to meet you. God bless. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hi, Deisha. Nice to meet you.
I think we
My
met
brother.
before.
Yeah.
All right.
right, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
I hope everyone is doing well. It's great to see your smiling faces today. I am CJ Epps. Of the many hats I've worn my time here in DC as a former Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. So I'm excited to come back home and to be with you all this afternoon. We have an exciting panel today, and I hope that you all will indulge me for a couple minutes as I'm a little formal today to make sure that I give each panelist their due. Today, we are going to discuss what leadership looks like in a world that feels anything but traditional.
Yeah.
As we just heard Tamika speaking, we are living in some very interesting times. With just this year alone, in the last few months, the world in our country specifically has looked drastically different than it has in forever.
Yes. Yes.
So, but today's conversation is about being in an era where old rules no longer apply. How do we lead with authenticity and resilience? Our three panelists have broken barriers and redefined influence, drawing from our powerful book with Deisha Dyer, the former White House Social Secretary turned change maker, and as you just heard, Tamika Mallory, an activist, and strategist Quentin Lacewell. This candidate conversation will explore what it takes to lead in undiplomatic times. They will share their insights on redefining influence and stepping boldly into leadership with purpose, courage, and vision. Please join me in welcoming Deisha, Tamika, and Quinn. So Deisha Dyer at the end here is a philanthropist, award-winning strategist, and author known for her authentic leadership, community organizing, and transformational work in social impact. She is the founder and president of Hook and Fasten, a social impact agency that builds purpose-driven partnerships. Deisha's journey is both inspiring and unconventional. At age 31, she was a community college student where she began interning at the White House. She ultimately rose to become the White House Social Secretary under President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. Committed to advancing equity and opportunity, Deisha curates multiple scholarships supporting Black women in politics, wellness, and animal care, and serves on the board of the Humane World of Animals. In 2014, she co-founded Be Girl World Global Scholars, an initiative helping teen girls become global citizens through travel, passport access, and global education. A vibrant and engaging speaker, Deisha celebrated for her candid voice on topics including imposter syndrome, leadership, mental health, race, and social justice. In 2019, she was named a resident fellow at Harvard School's Institute of Politics, where she designed and taught Imposter to Impact, a course that later inspired her acclaimed 2024 memoir, Undiplomatic. The book, praised by Oprah's Book Club and Michelle Obama, has been hailed as a must-read for institutions seeking transformational leadership and inclusion. Recently, she led a successful campaign that raised more than $25,000 to provide no-cost therapy for unemployed Black women, a testament to her continued commitment to liberation, equity, and healing. Tamika D. Mallory, to my immediate left, is a best-selling author, award-winning social justice leader, and movement strategist. A powerful organizer, she has led major justice movements from fighting voter suppression to advocating for Breonna Taylor. As the youngest ever executive director of the National Action Network, she helped create New York City's $100 million crisis management system for gun violence prevention. She also made history as the national co-chair of the 2017 Women's March, the largest single-day demonstration in U.S. history. In 2020, Tamika's viral speech during the George Floyd protests resonated with millions worldwide and became the foundation for her best-selling book, State of Emergency: How We Win in the Country We Built. Earlier this year, she released I Live to Tell the Story, a coming-of-age memoir that offers a deeply personal reflection on her journey as a curious young girl from Harlem, New York, to an internationally recognized activist. Now as co-founder of Until Freedom, she continues to advocate for marginalized communities and co-hosts the TMI podcast on iHeartRadio's Black Effect Network. Named one of Time 100's most influential people and featured on Fortune's World's Greatest Leaders, Tamika has received numerous honors, including the Phoenix Award from the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. She remains relentless in her fight for justice, all while embracing her most cherished roles as a mother and grandmother.
Oh, yes, mother, grandmother, yes.
Yes, grandmother.
Yes.
And finally, we have Quentin Lacewell Jr., who is an experienced communications and branding professional in strategic planning, brand strategies, and intergovernmental affairs. He currently serves as Vice President of Government Relations and External Affairs for Wells Fargo, where he manages partnerships including the Democratic Governors Association, U.S. Conference of Mayors, and the African American Mayors Association, among many others. He previously served in the Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's administration as a Senior Associate Director of the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs and the Communications Director for the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. Quentin has served in administrations of other leading Democratic mayors, including former Atlanta mayors Kasim Reed and Keisha Lance Bottoms. There, he was responsible for providing strategic counsel on message development for the mayor and the Atlanta City Council. While in Atlanta, he also served as the Deputy Communications Director for Tyler Perry Studios, where he managed public relations and all press logistics for the grand opening of Tyler Perry Studios. Quentin is a native of New Jersey. He is the youngest co-chair in the history of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Business Council and serves on the Black Innovation Alliance Advisory Board, the board of directors of the Fake Foundation, and is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Should I come up there and what?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm hot, but thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Wipe it down.
What's that? Thank you.
You could take the jacket off. You good?
Jacket off.
It's because I'm just so excited. All right, so as we kick off the conversation, I want to first ask our panelists, given that the old playbook no longer applies, could you each share a specific time when you had to discard a traditional approach to leadership and how you navigated that situation successfully? I'd like to start with Disha.
Okay. How are y'all doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm from Philly, so I'm real loud. So hopefully I'm not too loud. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be up here with all of you. So I think I'm living in that right now. I'm 47, which is also why I have my fan. I'm going through the change of life, okay? And so shout out to all of us going through the change of life. We survivors. But I'm not a social media person. I put everything on there. But as we are in this stage of life, it is everything. You are the best leader if you have the best clip. You are the best leader if you could be loud and you could do all these things on social media. And I'm like, no. I actually am in the community. I don't have time to film myself doing stuff. I don't have time, and it's not sexy, right? It's not sexy, right? So people look at me like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm actually in the community doing things. So I think for me right now, breaking the tradition of always having to put things on social, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that sometimes you have to ask yourself, the last time you saw somebody saying something on social media, ask them the last time they've actually been in their community. And it's not even a diss, right? It's not even I'm showing my age, a diss, but like it's not even a diss, but it's just like the traditional way of doing things now is to be as visible as possible. That's just not me. So I feel like I'm living that right now. You good?
Yes.
CJ, you good? Okay, we good. Okay. But that's how I feel like I'm doing that right now, is I'm trying to really be in community. I'm trying to lift up, as Tamika said in the last panel, our organizations that are dealing with federal budget cuts, that are dealing with donations being down, that are dealing with needs being up. How can we show up for them in person and help them? How can we get money for them? And for me, that's different than, look at me, rah, rah, rah. Like, it's just not for me. So I feel like that's how I'm showing up now. And there's a place for everybody, but I feel like that's how I'm showing up. But just being in community and like kind of continue what Tamika said earlier.
So for me, I'll say is leading with compassion and grace. I think we have this stereotype really in the black community, working in government, you got to pledge everybody. You know, you just got to do the most when people come through. Shout out to my former boss sitting in the audience, Mr. Declan Kingland, who just exemplified that you don't have to go through all that trauma we went through. And so I'm living and navigating through lifting people up while not abusing power.
That's right.
Genuinely giving people people have bad days, being understanding and not putting people through the hell that they necessarily went through for no needs to build them up.
Yeah.
That's right.
I guess I'll take a different approach. I'm not sure that the old playbook is no longer needed. I come from an intersection and movement of both the old and the new. My mentors, the women that I talk to every day at 7 o'clock in the morning are Cora Masters Berry, the widow of the Honorable Mayor Marion Berry from this great city, as well as our sister who has gone on, my godmother, Hazelyn Dukes, who was a board member of the NAACP and also the president of the New York State Conference of the NAACP. These are women that I get up in the morning and set the tone of my day, listening to their wisdom and advice. But by the time I go throughout my day, I make sure that I talk to younger people on the other side of the spectrum, and I make sure to talk to people who don't necessarily agree with some of the positions that I may have heard in the morning time, right? And I think that's what makes me a more well-rounded and diverse leader, that I can have many different things deposited in me, which are all leading to the same goal, but be able to understand the temperature of now and the wisdom of yesterday to make decisions. And so I would say that I have not thrown the old playbook out. I draw from it. And one example of that is when we were in Kentucky for Breonna Taylor, we would post something and 10 people would show up. And 10 people is like, why do we have it? I'm talking about even posting that we're giving out free food. While we were there, we fed 4,000 families, because when we landed, when we drove up to into Kentucky, we at first went there to fight for Breonna Taylor, and then found out that the community was saying, sure, what happened to Breonna is terrible, but we also live in a food desert. Right. And because this is a pandemic, we don't even have fresh vegetables. So we hear you, and we feel sorry about what happened to that sister, but we're just trying to survive as well. And exactly, and therefore, we decided that we would also feed folks. Shout out to my brother Trey the Truth, who had trucks of food being delivered so that we could distribute food and flyers for the next march at the same time. And so we went from posting and having 10 people showing up to realizing that we needed to knock on the doors of the families. And that was from the old playbook of walking the streets and talking to our people. And guess what? Thousands of people started showing up to be a part of our activities. So there's no such thing as throwing out any of our tactics. We need to have the entire book in front of us and just flip the pages depending on the moment, and use all of our wisdom to be able to handle our business, you know.
Okay. And Tamika, you touched on something where you had mentioned that if you all had posted, where you all would be, and Disha even touched on this earlier. So I would like to ask you, how do you see the concept of influence evolving in today's society, and what advice would you give to the next generation about building a platform with integrity and impact?
Well, first of all, we don't know what platforms we will still have shortly, because these folks are trying to create a monopoly on all things information do, which is to make sure that the uninformed are the majority of us. Yeah. We cannot allow that to happen, and that means that we have to shore up our platforms. So where there are brothers and sisters who are building things, we need to support them. Never mind whether or not they hurt your feelings or got on your nerves a couple of months ago, or you don't like something they said. You can go check them on that, and let's do that work. But at the same time, we need to make sure that if there's an infrastructure that exists, that we help to build it. I think about Fanbase, which is a platform that Isaac Hayes, that I invested in, that Roland Martin Martin, who also has a platform. Roland Martin is the only independent network that is every day at 6 o'clock telling you the truth about what's happening in Black America. He asked for $5 to $10 a month in subscriptions and donations to support the work. There should not be a month that we are not doing that. Our podcast, the TMI Show, which is on the Black Effect Podcast Network, will be taping here in the podcast booth tomorrow at 1:20. Shameless plug.
Love the plug.
But support us, download, share the information, because at some point there will come a time when the monopoly will close in so much that we will not be able to get independent thought from independent networks and outlets. And so I don't know what influence is going to look like in the next couple of months, but I will tell you that right now it's looking shady when you have a Jimmy Kimmel and a Karen Attiah being fired or they tried to fire Jimmy Kimmel, but honey, that didn't work. And I'm gonna tell you something. That example is important as well, because a Black woman was fired from the Washington Post just days before Jimmy Kimmel, and I don't know if anybody really did anything at all for this sister, right? And she used to write terrible things about me, so I could sit here and be in my feelings about it, but what has happened to her is way more important than a story that she wrote about me that I don't agree with, right? That's to show you an example in live form what I mean, that we can deal with over here. But what's important is that her voice being removed from the Washington Post means that there is an actual intentional dismantling of people's freedom to say what they believe and for journalists to tell their side of the story, right? Because her stuff that she wrote about me wasn't the truth. But anyway, sorry. And so I'm just telling you now that we didn't really do enough to support that sister. But Jimmy Kimmel, a white man, gets fired, and Disney almost loses their behind in the midst of that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. We have to be just as forceful as these other folks are, because to a large degree, white folks were the ones who were saying, oh no, Jimmy Kimmel will be back on that TV, right? And so I just think that power, that we also sometimes we have been beaten so much that we don't even believe we have the power, and yet we sitting there with the subscription on our phones. Cut it off. You don't need it. There is nothing about your oppressor that you have to have in order to survive.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And a perfect segue, and Deisha, I'd like you to take this question.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, and the title of this segment, Living in Undiplomatic Times, how do you maintain authenticity and purpose as leaders when facing public scrutiny or backlash, especially in the era of this rapid information?
Yeah, I think for me, I've never left my community. Even when I worked at the White House, I would go down to HIPS, and I would go down to Carpenter Shelter and the guest house, women that got out of prison, HIPS, they're social or sex workers in the street. I would go and I would interact with them. They didn't know what I did for a living. They didn't care what I did for a living. Those are my people. So for me, how I maintain is that I go where I am loved. I go where I love them. I go where that's where I started. The White House was beautiful. We had a lovely time, but it is behind a gate. It is at the end of the day, it's a white institution. It was built that way. So it wasn't that I didn't belong there. I didn't want to belong there. And it was hard because I had a prestigious position, right? And so it was like, look at her essence, look at her here, but then I never quite fit in. It was always like, well, you know how she is. She's so loud. You know how she is. She bringing this person. You know how she is. But for me, the opinion of people that I didn't respect, that I didn't care about, and that were temporary because it was only 8 years, I had to move on with my life, they didn't matter to me. So for me, I stayed in community. I made sure that I was always checking myself and holding myself accountable and saying, you know what, I did something that wasn't okay. I am the first person to tell myself, you need to be accountable to your community. So for me, is being in community and staying there. And that's not, and again, I use the word sexy because it's not sexy. Like, it's not. Like, it's not, you go somewhere and people are expecting you to be like, tell me about Obama. Tell me about Obama. And I'm just like, that was literally 8 years ago. You know what I'm saying? I was a social worker before I got there.
Yeah.
And I was a social worker when I was there, and I was a social worker when I left. The parties were fun, I ain't gonna lie. They were a good time. But I think that for me, I stay in community and I listen and I prioritize them. I say, if I don't know about this subject, I know somebody who does, a peer counselor, a teacher, a social worker, a mom, a so-and-so. I'm good with not having the spotlight. I'm good with that. So for me, it's not the most way to advance my career or advance my profile, but it feels so authentic to me, and I hope that it's an example to people, who say, I don't know how to, just follow what you know is right. You know where we came from. And at the end of the day, if you line up my entire career and my life, I tell you who's going to fight for me and who isn't. I know that to my core. So that's who I'm riding for, and I stay close to that. I don't stray too far from that. So that's how I do it.
Absolutely. I want to change kind of gears a little bit, and this question is for Quentin. And when Tamika was talking about Jimmy Kimmel, and we were talking about the media and these major corporations, especially for our young people and our young leaders, what is one truth about leading in a corporate environment that young people need to understand in order to be effective and to make a real impact or even change?
I think you got to understand that you have to first be coachable. My generation struggles in that area where they think they know every damn thing. You have to be coachable. These are still institutions at the end of the day, and institutions are rooted in history. So I'm a firm believer in sitting at the feet of the elders like you, Tamika. I talk to Reverend Elaine Flake several times a week. I talk to Reverend Tony Lee, who's my pastor. These people have changed institutions. And so I have Gigi Dixon, who's a Stallsworth at Wells Fargo. I have to get the knowledge to understand how to operate in the room. You just can't do that and upset the apple cart. And so for me, it's sitting at the feet of the elders, understanding where you are, and learning the job. You can't come in with all the bright ideas if you don't understand the background and history, because we're all rooted into how we got somewhere. That's how all these institutions was built. The CBC wasn't built overnight. And so we got to get back to the basics and understand how to operate in these spaces. But sitting at the feet of the elders, I believe, is pertinent to understand how we got here, the wisdom, because how did y'all do this? I don't have the blueprint, and also keeping that connectedness to it, because you'll be surprised some of the struggles we deal with every day are some of the same struggles they were dealing with 40 years ago, but they chipped away at a bit, and so we could help push it over the edge.
Thank you. And this is a topic and a question that I actually would like all of you all to answer, just given the society, the stress of this year alone. For leaders who feel immense pressure to appear resilient and unshakable, how do you manage your own mental well-being? And what strategies do you recommend for the next generation to prioritize self-care and avoid burnout?
Well, I'll start in saying that, my book, I Live to Tell the Story, which is right over there. You can meet me over there if you would like to get a copy when we're done. It covers a real dark time in my life where I got addicted to pain pills. I started taking, first it was Xanax, and then I started taking Percocets, and at one point I was taking between 20 to 30 pills a day. I literally almost died. And I didn't say that I was suicidal, but if I closed my eyes and I didn't wake up, it would have been okay. It would have been okay. I had gone through a real tough time here in this city, dealing with the Women's March on Washington and the fallout afterwards, where I had been labeled anti-everybody. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and there were 400 articles written about me and how my career was over.
Wow.
And communities had decided that I alone was their enemy. And certainly, which now I understand more, that it wasn't just me, it was what I symbolized. And that was, one, the strength of Black women, and two, that I was a part of, as you said, the single day, the most attended march and organizing effort in American history, not in modern day, not in some parts of history. There had never been anything like the Women's March, and we were naive enough to think we were doing something. something, honey. We thought we were like, this is it. This is the beginning of
But
a
y'all did
new.
do something.
Yeah, we thought we were at the beginning of a turning point. No pun intended. And instead, we were really at the beginning of watching the backlash happen all over again. But this time, we were the subjects of that. And it was very, very difficult. And so I would stay in my room and thought that pills could help me because of the numbing. That was as a result of me, you know, I want to be able to blame the women in the Women's March, the white women tears, the men who were, you know, writing terrible things about us, the outlets. I want to be able to blame all of and those things played a role. But when I started to, in the book, think back in my life over things that I had not addressed even before this, because I lacked the ability to be able to handle what was coming at me. And part of it was that I had allowed myself, one, because as my mama said, they'll build you up to tear you down. And I didn't know that. And then also because I had been in Reverend Al Sharpton's shadows for so long in the beginning of my career, we would used to be behind him like, damn, they hitting you hard, Rev. You know, I didn't know what it looked like for the hits to hit me directly. But to see myself exposed in the way in which I was, that people were literally calling me every name you could think of, that was real hard to accept when I had made myself believe that I'm not any of those things and that won't happen to me. And there was work that needed to be done that I never addressed. And so I found myself stressed out, overworked, lack of rest, insecure, ego bruised, all at one time, and unsure of what my career would be like. And then they stripped all of my speaking engagements, all of my contracts, and I had $400 in my bank account with a card note due, no groceries, and had to text my friends and ask them to send me money to survive. And it was in that moment that I knew, one, I needed to go to rehab, which I did. But also, I knew then that none of all the other things that I'd done mattered as much as the fact that I was about to leave my son here in this world without his mother in the name of me doing good by others and terrible by myself. And so I would say that, you know, first of all, you can really literally read my book and learn about the stages that I went through. But there is this quote, and I'll be done here, that is in the book that resonates with my soul. I say it everywhere that I go, that I was born fighting for freedom, and I will live until I die fighting for freedom. But this time, freedom is also going to include me. And that's what I would tell someone else. Make sure that the freedom you're fighting for includes yourself as well.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Thank you. And Deisha, same question in terms of mental health.
What I would say is I'm sitting up here right now with type 2 diabetes. I have hypertension. I got rushed to the Georgetown Hospital when I was at the White House, all because I thought I had to prove and prove and prove. I can't go to sleep because they're going to think I'm not good. I can't do this because then people are going to think that I don't deserve this job. They're going to laugh at me and figure out I only have an associate's degree, but being a senior person at the White House. All of that, I sit up here with a monitor right now. I sit up here with heart problems. All of that because I was so busy trying to prove who I was in a world that would never see me, in a world that didn't care, in a world that technically don't care if I die or not. That's just the truth. And so my standards of what I had to live up to weren't defined by anybody that looked like me, but I didn't know that, right? I was living in the machine. And so for me, in my book, Undiplomatic, I talk about that. And I talk about how it took me, literally the president put his hand on my shoulder. We had Diana Ross. And let me tell you, it was December 2016. I worked for years to get Diana Ross at this damn White House. And I was so excited. And I remember briefing the president and first lady. He put his hand on my shoulder. He's like, are you all right? And the next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital. I had passed out. And the first thing I said when I wake up, did Diana Ross perform? Did I miss her? I ain't give a crap. I didn't care where I was. I could have been going on to glory. And I was like, is everything okay? And the president, they made me like stay off of work for 2 weeks. But I say that to say that's what woke me up, is that I almost lost my life. And not only that, the White House, I got pregnant. I got pregnant right before the Pope came, divine intervention, knew I wasn't keeping this baby, had an abortion. I came back to work the next day. The next day.
Wow.
I was lightheaded, and I was like, but I don't want people to think something wrong with me. I literally put myself behind temporary work, right? I self-sacrificed so much because I thought that that would get me finally over some hump or something. So what I say now is please don't self-sacrifice yourself for anything or anyone. It can wait. We as a people, I love food just like everybody else, but I was on my Peloton, I ate healthy, and still I'm sitting here with type 2 diabetes. My A1C was 12.2. Wow. They could not even believe I was living. I was like, well, me neither. Shit, I don't, you know. But I think that that's what I say now, especially to young people who feel such a responsibility to fix everything. My God, please take care of yourself. Please check out once in a while. Tag somebody else in like wrestling. Let somebody else come in, because I'm telling you, it sneaks up on you so fast. So fast, before you know it, you sweat and you got gut issues. I got a headache, my migraine, my hair falling out. That's not because you had greens with extra salt. It's because we stressed the hell out. And you need to take a second. So for me, I don't feel guilty anymore. And it's hard. It's real hard. It's real hard. But I'm like, I gotta sit this one out because I'm feeling flush. I'm taking hormones right now on top of everything else. And so I look at myself, I can see my skin changing. I can see how happy I am and enjoy. And my husband and I play games at night. I know the world's on fire, but I need that. And so I'm hoping that I can be an example. But I'm telling you, it's not a game. It's not a game.
And thank you both for being so honest.
Of course.
And Quentin,
Always.
same question in terms of like your mental health and well-being.
For me, keeps me grounded mentally is the 3 F's, I call it: faith, family, and friends. One as an ordained preacher of the gospel, understand I got to have a prayer life.
Absolutely.
Because everything you just spoke to, Tamika, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but you know it's rulers, powers, y'all know that, right? Family keeps me rooted. I remember all of this is about family. Where I'm sitting where I am today. Again, I said in the last panel, my father, when I was about 12 years old, took me to Cory Booker's office, who was our council member. Wow. It was his exploratory committee meeting. He was running for mayor of Newark. Said, you're going to be here in these rooms. I'm standing and operating in a space that I didn't deserve. It's due to my family. And my dad got murdered when I was 15. So I always remember he made sacrifices for me that I have to continue to sacrifice and keep my family involved. That's what family keeps me together. And friends. We going to CBC. One of my good friends is out here in the audience, Katharina Batiste, just to make sure I was good and set and not losing my cool, running around CBC, losing track of schedule. So it's faith, family, and friends for me. That's my mental health. I work towards it. I'm grateful for a corporation such as Wells Fargo that allows me to travel and bring people with me. Amen. So my mom gets to experience all of these cool things. She gets to travel with me, and I'm very intentional about that. Anywhere I take a trip to is downtime for me. Going to a beach somewhere, going to explore something new.
Thank you. And I want you all to be thinking. I have one last question for our panelists, but I want you all to be thinking. We should have time for maybe 2 questions. So after responses to this question, I would like to be able to hand the microphone to 1 or 2 of you all if you have questions for any of our panelists. And our final question, what practical advice would you offer a young person who wants to lead with purpose and vision, but feels overwhelmed by the chaotic and polarized nature of the world today? Tamika?
Yeah, small chunks at a time, you know.
That's right.
'Cause I've done all the things stated, trying to take on way too much. I'm still doing it. I'm sitting over here like, what time is it? I need to get off of here because I got a call. Yesterday I was like over there selling books on a conference call, telling the person, when I stop talking to you, you know what it is, right? It's a little different because I do it with my own control over when to rev up and when to dial it back. But when you're young, you don't necessarily know how to control when you feel like going hard, and you just go hard all the time, especially in this type of environment where you feel like change is on your back by yourself. Like you're the only one responsible for trying to change what we see happening in our world. And so I would say that carving out the small parts that you can do is so important, and also knowing that, and this is not just for young people, this is all of us, knowing that the team you build is what will literally keep you alive.
Yes. Woo.
Right? The team you build of people who think different and look different and have the capacity to step in when you get tired. That is what makes me more of a successful leader, is that I have found the team. I don't need to be the only one. I'm not looking for all the credit and all the spotlight. It has never really been my thing, but I have found now that it's actually my comfort zone to be able to look to my left and my right and find people who are just as smart, if not smarter, just as talented, if not more, and be able to draw energy from one another. And so find a team, build that team, and then carve out those chunks of what can we actually accomplish and who else can we bring along to help us chip away at these responsibilities.
Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah, I think, for me, I don't even think I would give any advice. I asked how they were doing. What do you need out of me? How can I help you? What are you struggling with? Because I think that too many times I give advice, but right now they need exposure. They need to meet my network. They need to open. So how can I help you? What can I do for you? Because for me, I always tell people, like, you can look me up on YouTube or whatever you want to do and listen to advice all day. So when people ask me to meet, I get it every day, all day. Can I meet? And I don't got no boundaries. So I'll be like, sure. And they'll come on and say, tell me how you got to the White House. That's online. What's your next question? So my whole thing is, I'm not going to give you any advice. I want to ask you, how can I help you and what do you need? And not only that, what music you listen to? What you do for fun last? Because they are inundated with advice on how to do everything. But I want to get to the core of who you are.
Absolutely.
Don't forget about the child who played games. Play your little video games. Do your little hair. Take your little selfies. Like, all of that is part of being, especially for a black girl, black girlhood. Be a black girl. Do your nails. There is nothing wrong with none of that. You don't have to go do all the things. You can do whatever you want. So for me, and why I get along with young people so well, it's because I'm just like, so what we doing today? And they just like, well, do you want to tell me how to network? I'm like, shit, you tell me how to network. Like, I'm 47, so I need the help. So I think that for me, instead of giving advice, I ask them what they need and how can I help them. And my Rolodex, as my friends in here know, you have gotten an email or a call being like, hey, so I got this young person who's going into journalism. They just need a little help. I got this young person that wants to work at Wells Fargo. You mind get on the phone? So for me, that's what I do, and I would ask them what they need before I would give advice.
That's amazing.
Speaking of journalists, the great Tremaine Lee is here with
my
us
childhood
today.
friend. That's what I said
Thank
it
you
for,
for
yeah.
coming and listen to our TED Talk.
Who gave me
Tremaine.
an opportunity in my young 20s in Atlanta, not knowing I would be here today. I'm forever indebted.
Well, I have a story about Tremaine. We grew up together. I've known him since 8th, 9th grade. That's my homie right there.
Oh, wow.
See, we love you, Tremaine.
And Quentin?
For me, I would say don't hate your place of small beginnings. That's one of my biggest frustrations with my generation. We're so entitled. You're not entitled to anything. When I first started with the city of Atlanta, here I am with a master's degree, and they offered me an internship. I was looking for my corner office. She said, don't hate your place of small beginnings, because one thing I've learned is when you're faithful to the assignment, it'll open up doors for divine alignment. So after 3 weeks of intern and being insulted, they told me, we're going to hire you, and your office is around the corner. They just want to see if I would be faithful. If I would be willing to soak up everything, sit at the table and learn something. Ann Torres, who's somewhere around here, opened up the floodgates. Because when you're just faithful and don't hate your place of small beginnings, you don't know what opportunities will open up for you. I'll never forget one day, because I was faithful to the assignment, didn't hate that place of small beginnings, and took that opportunity. She says to me one day, go downstairs and get this man and bring him up to Mayor Reed's office. I go downstairs, get this man ass told, not hating, not thinking I'm too good to hold this briefcase. Didn't know that this man was the president of the Rockefeller Foundation. And because we had a very kind mayor, he told me, escorting him in, he said, boy, sit down. And being obedient, sat down, not hating my place to small beginnings, just being a good poster child. We hit it off, both realizing we were both from Jersey. Couldn't imagine just being faithful to the assignment. I hate my place in small beginnings. Many years later, keeping in contact, I would find myself here in the nation's capital, and Mr. Otis Rowley was the president of the Wells Fargo Foundation. And so when they said, Otis, we're looking for someone here in the halls of Congress, he turns over and said, have you all met Quentin Lacewell? Say all that to say, don't hate your place in small beginnings, because you don't know where it'll take you.
Amen to that. And we do have a few more minutes. Are there any questions from folks in the audience?
I know y'all got questions.
No, my sis got a question. No.
Okay. Thank you.
You guys, I am so honored to be in this room today. I'm from Sligoville, St. Catherine. I'm from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And I'm here in this room where you guys have paved the way for somebody like me, for my children to come and stand on their story. I just want to say thank you. But I also want to say, what is one advice that you can give to people like us that are coming from the West Indies? How can we support this movement that we weren't born into, but we are living into, and our children, our legacy are here, and we want them to be safe. We want them to be a part. I didn't learn how to be a part of the community until you in 2020, when you were talking about, going out there and fighting for George Floyd, or, standing up for his right. I did not know. If it weren't for you, I would still be sitting on my couch. But I want to know now, and I want my family to know, what can you encourage us to do?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry. I want to start by saying something. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to black women.
Absolutely.
And we have an obligation to protect and celebrate black women, because no matter where you're from, St. Catharines or California, there's a struggle and a sisterhood, I believe, bonded by a number of things. And so I just wanted to take that opportunity to thank you all for the struggle, because black women don't get their flowers enough. I'm grateful it was 2 black women after my father was murdered. My mother kept the dream alive and made sure she paid Clark Atlanta one fat check in cash so I wouldn't have a debt. And so I just want to say thank you and take the opportunity, because it's the black women who we stand on your shoulders in this struggle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess the only advice that I would say is integrate. Oftentimes when people are coming to communities that they are not familiar with, we find the same clique and stick together. And I think about most of the meetings that I go to in the retreats, the most uncomfortable part is when they pull me away from whoever I know. As soon as you walk in the room, you like, I know that's my corner, and you want to get into it. But what actually allows us to have new opportunities, and I see you already doing this. I've watched you move around in this space. You've got to make sure that you're uncomfortable being in space with other people and allowing them to see that their issues are your issues and your issues are their issues, so that we can come together. The devil is playing a serious game with us right now of trying to divide us in immigrants versus people who are from the United States, which we all damn immigrants, and how we got here and our stories for how we got here. It differs, but nonetheless, we all came from somewhere. And we have to push back and really reject these narratives that would allow us to think that our brothers and sisters who look like us are not our people. They would be unable to do what they are doing, disappearing people off of our streets, if more of us were defiant about what we see taking place. If we would have listened when they were telling us that that's what they were going to do, and worked a little harder to get some of our people off the couch, and to make sure that we challenge narratives of misinformation. And so we have a lot of work to do, because to be honest, my brother Jumaane Williams, who is the public advocate in New York City, y'all make sure y'all tell him that I gave him credit for his quote. He often says that some of us, we drank the Kool-Aid. We sat there and looked at other people, and we othered them and said, it's okay if they take them, as long as they don't take us.
Cousins in them.
Or the cousins in them, right? We said, it's okay. What we didn't realize is it's an immigration issue. It is a black women not having employment issue. It is a healthcare issue. These folks are working on all of us at the same time, and none of us will be free until all of us are free. And we better get that in our heads and get it there quickly. Yes.
Right now.
So we have time for one more question, if there are any.
So first I want to say thank you for the amazing information that you all gave on this panel. I normally have a second, so I'll make sure I'm quick with this question. You all talked about how important it is to be a part of your community, make sure you're doing what you can, but you all also talked about having that balance and not doing too much. So just to give a little bit about myself, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. So there's a lot of negative things going on in my community. And again, we know we can't solve all the world's problems today, but at the same time, they did just deploy the National Guard in our community today. So how do we balance making sure we're doing what we need to today, but not doing too much so that we're not there for the fight tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, I know y'all know I talk a lot, but that's a part. It's in my book. You know how that's landed me here. I would just say we have to think of ourselves as the National Guard of our own communities. And when we accept that responsibility, we know that the National Guard, while it may be being weaponized against us, there's a process for how it works. Everybody doesn't do the same thing, right? There are people who are frontline, which are the folks that we see who are interfacing in communities, but there's a command center. There are other roles that people are playing in order to make the National Guard what it is. And so I would say that sometimes you're going to be on the front line, but sometimes it's the strategy that is also important. And so in this moment, you have to figure out where is it that you should be standing. There are troops in the community in Memphis, I'm sure, that's ready to hit the ground and go out and protect our community. But there are other people who have to think about what does the community look like while they're here and when these folks leave, because after they come into your community, it will never ever be the same. And we have to figure out how did they choose Memphis or X City, put X City in that spot. What is it about our city that made us attractive for them to come and try to inflict this type of abuse on us? And what do we need to do to fix those issues so that we will not be so vulnerable as we go forward?
Yeah. And what I would say to that and adding to that is when the National Guard came here and they started snatching brown and black folks, trans folks off the streets, there's an organization called Sasha Bruce Youth Works. Sasha Bruce has been around for 50 years. The first thing I did was mobilize and say, we need to support Sasha Bruce because they are the ones that are on the front lines making sure that these people have somewhere to go. So as Tamika said, there's strategy, there's front line, there's people who can bankroll it and write the checks. There's a place for everybody. So for me, my thing is, I'm about to put it up on Instagram today, is that we need to support Sasha Bruce. They just got $1 million cut, right? So they got their money cut, but then what's happening in the city is they're the ones that are helping. So what I say is the local organizations, whether it's an official 501c3, whether it's grandma who gives the diapers out the back of her truck, whether it is the shoe man, whether it is the ramen man, whoever it is in the community keeping people fed, people housed, people clothed, people giving them infant formula for their babies, we need to love on them with our dollars, our capital, because what's happening in places like a Sasha Bruce, they gotta let their staff go. What happens when they let their staff go is that their services get cut. When the services get cut, the organization goes away. And then we're gonna say, well, there's nobody in the community doing anything. Why don't nobody do it? They were here doing something, but we were too busy following XYZ, getting ready with Me Day, that we didn't even realize that are things in the community that are holding us everything up as the National Guard does what they do, holding everything up that our community they're not supported. These local organizations are not supported. And so for me, we have to support the legal and the non-legal. The non-legal, because they fight for us, we have to support them in what they do. They are our foot soldiers on the ground. We are here in this convention center while somebody's out there trying to figure out a bed for the night for all these people the National Guard is rounding up. It is a desperate situation between food, housing, education, healthcare. We are in desperation. celebration mode, okay? So that's what we need to do. Find your place of where you need to be, but I beg you all to find out who's the one in the community doing whatever they're doing and support them. I don't care if they got one follower. Support their ass, what they do. So that's what I say. And thank you for being here. Thank you.
And so I would say, for me, it's a pet peeve of mine, knowledge. One of my favorite quotes is, ignorance can be educated, but stupidity lasts forever. We're all in this together. And we got to get back to the basics of teaching one, reaching one. And a lot of that is based in knowledge. My cousins love them, streaming right now, still on the corner, North New Jersey, smoking their Lucy's. But we got to teach them how, they encounter these experiences to know their rights. Because they're often lied to. You said it, they're being weaponized and they're abusing the community, but nobody can get you on what you know.
That's right.
That's right.
And so we have to teach our people to know their rights, to stand their ground.
That's right.
Absolutely. I want to thank all of our panelists for
Thank
taking
you.
the time
Thank
to
you.
speak
Great
with us
question.
today
you all
during the
for coming.
Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference. And that we will close.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you all
CJ,
so much.
Tamika, and Quentin.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. We didn't get
I'm not being away from the photo. Unless I'm gonna fall. Sorry.
Hello? Oh, yes, it's on now. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosa Castellano. Hello. And I'm here to talk about a book that I wrote, but mostly I'm here to remind everyone that the impossible is sometimes possible. All of us are containers for stories. I feel like that's what I heard as part of the panel that just went. And so I'd like to use my 4-ish minutes to remind you guys of the power of the stories that you carry inside, the value that we all have when we talk about the things that matter to us, when we take the time to write them down. Also, a quick reminder that the blank page, the empty canvas, is there for all of us to use. We were talking in that last panel about how we manage our mental health in times of crisis, and I just want to remind folks that you don't have to be a poet or an author to tell your story, to have words that matter. And so I'm going to use this time to share a poem with you from my book. And I just invite you to use this time, since we're in between panels, since the day is so full. Feel free to close your eyes. Feel free to use this moment in a way that feels good to you, whatever that looks like, however that feels. The poem is called, "And When It Happens, My Body Doesn't Remember That You're Gone. When a memory feathers through you mid-step, mid-speak, mid-breath, and the hairs on your arms rise as if in answer to a call only your bones can hear, and you find yourself standing in your kitchen or bathroom or in whatever place you have wandered into with your chest squeezed tight. Because when it happens, when someone you love dies, it's never just the once. I like to picture my brother the moment before, holding tight to the seat or hugging the waist of his friend, the bike swerving beneath them both so that they flow over the blacktop, giving in to the dip and glide, going faster and faster, not thinking, only feeling. And I can see him, his hair cut short. Yes, he wore a helmet, but I see him, his eyes squeezed shut, and he is smiling. He feels the wind, feels me, kiss his cheek, each eye, his forehead, the bridge of his nose, and I know, even now, he wouldn't want those kisses from me. He'd take them from his girl. That's what he was racing towards, the girl who'd said yes to moving in just weeks before. When it happens, I'm at my high school graduation, at college, in the back of a friend's car, at my sister's wedding, about to make a toast, about to paint the walls of my living room white. When it happens, I have just given birth to my son, and through the thinness of the hospital gown, the floor against my hip is cool. I have fainted in the doorway of a bathroom, and later the nurse will say it was the emptiness my body hadn't adjusted to. Now that babe has grown big enough to drive, and he pulls me sideways into a hug so ordinary, I almost miss the press, my cheek, his chest, a hand on my arm, and I am reminded that each touch, each collision is a kind of loss, unremarkable as the floor beneath my feet or the chair that you all are sitting in. Because when it happens, when we touch, bump, crash into one another's lives, sometimes for only the briefest moment, what's left behind, caught in the net of our bodies, stretches us till we are wide and deep as breath. This is my book. Thank you so much. If I can write a book, then you can write a book. If I can write down what I need to write down, then you can write down what you need to write down. We have tools. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary LaQ Simpkins, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm an author, a published author, and I just want to thank God, because without him, I wouldn't be standing here. So I just want to say how I started writing, which was 4 years ago. So writing about this little dog named Prince Patches, and he's my dog, and he's real. So if you see all of this purple, it's because I named him after Prince, the artist. And Prince Patches, and he is a prince, and he looks exactly like this, and sometimes I travel with him because people want to see him. So he's a little Maltese Shih Tzu. So how I started writing about him is when I first bought him, I realized he was too much responsibility. So I was like, I can't have a dog because I like to travel, I like to do too many things. So about a month after I had bought him, I decided I'm going to let him go and try to give him to someone or sell him, because I paid a lot of money for him. But anyways, with that being said, I had this family to come over because they wanted to buy it for their little boy and girl. However, Patches would not go. Well, we can't take him because he ran up and stand literally between my legs, and he wouldn't move. says the dog like this. He doesn't want to leave, and so he got away, and then he went, and we couldn't find him. But then I found him on the back step. So he was on the back step looking at me like I'm waiting to come in because I'm not going anywhere. It was almost like I could read what he was saying. So anyways, I looked at him and I said, you know what, Patches, I'm gonna write a book about you because you're a lot of responsibility. So, well, by God given talent, I wrote his first book, Prince Patches, and it's educational, and it speaks about having compassion to have a pet and the responsibility of a pet, because that's important. When you have a pet, you have to take care of it. And then I decided I'm going to write a series. So my second book is Prince Patches and Ella the Halo Butterfly. And how I came up with this title, God instilled in my heart. When I was 3 years old, my mother had a stillborn, and her name was Ella. So I named this book Prince Patches and Ella the Halo Butterfly. And this little butterfly with a halo over her head, and she meets Prince Patches in the forest. He was on an adventure, so she flies down from heaven, and it's a very sweet book, and it's easy read, and it doesn't frighten children. My audience is like age 4 through 12, and so they meet each other, and it inspired Patches to be more like Ella, because he asked Ella in the book, where is heaven? How did you get to heaven? How you had to be, she told him, you have to be respectful, you have to be nice and kind to people. So it's really sweet. So it doesn't, I don't look at it as grief, because it teaches about friendship and loss. Then it was put into my spirit, because Patches, I think he loves Christmas because he loves to put on his clothes. He loves to wear Christmas clothes. And so I wrote this book called Prince Patches Magical Christmas. And it teaches about the magic and joy of Christmas. And it's a very positive book, and it's an easy read. And also, saying all of this to you all, I'm an educator. I love to educate kids and to inspire and tell people to, share your passions, whatever you like to do it. It's writing, whatever you want to do, just do it. And with this Christmas book came a coloring book, Prince Patches coloring book. And the Christmas book also comes with stickers, because kids love stickers. They just love stickers. And with that being said, I've done a lot of book signings. I love to socialize and inspire people and share what I know, and they share what we know. And it's like being here. I'm so excited of being here because you get to network. And I like that. And I just thank you all for being a great audience. I appreciate you. I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but if I could stay up here another hour and talk about Prince Patches. Thank you.
All right, how y'all doing? Oh yeah, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I got a big voice. Big shoulders, short legs. All right, y'all, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Greg Jackson. I am first and foremost a survivor of gun violence, but been an activist in the gun violence space for now over 12 years. And I'm really honored to bring before you the great Tremaine Lee.
How you feeling?
Give it up for Tremaine.
How y'all doing? All right. Thank you for having me.
Now, if you don't know about him, first of all, this is an amazing book, 1,000 Ways to Die, which we'll talk a little bit about today. But he is a Pulitzer Prize and Emmy Award-winning journalist and MSNBC contributor. He's the host of Into America podcast, where he covers the intersection of blackness, power, and politics, and a contributing author of the 1619 Project. He's reported before the New York Times, HuffPost, Times, the New Orleans Advocate, and this is his first book, okay? But he's not nervous, right?
Not at all, not at all.
All right, so hopefully that was a decent intro, but I would love for you to maybe share a little bit more about your story and what inspired you to write this book.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I know there's a lot going on, so the fact that you're taking the time to be here with us, it really does mean a lot, so thank you very much. As Greg mentioned, this is my very first book. It's been a lifetime in the making and literally took me 10 years to write. And so after a decade of telling the stories of Black death and survival as a reporter in many major American cities, Philadelphia, New York, New Orleans, I set out to write a book about the true cost of gun violence in terms of actual dollars as a way to speak into the cost that we pay as families and communities every single day. And the earliest seeds of what would become this book was back in 2003 in Philly. And I was an intern at the time covering police and crime. And so often I would find at crime scenes young Black men who looked just like me, my age, my sneakers, dressed like me, dead from gunshot wounds. And I would see in their families' eyes what I can only imagine would be in my family's eyes had I been the one shot, right? And grappling with all the pain and the reflections of that hurt in community. But I met a young man named Kevin Johnson, who was shot and paralyzed during a robbery for his Allen Iverson jersey, his basketball jersey. I snuck into the hospital room to try to interview him. And what I expected to find was a young man completely shattered, right? Broken, physically certainly, after being paralyzed. But instead what I found was a young man full of hope and buoyancy with this huge smile who told me about his dreams of one day walking again. And in his literal dreams, feeling like he can play basketball and feel every sensation. But then I looked across his hospital bed where I found his mother's eyes, welling with tears, and there was an acknowledgement between us that Kevin would never walk again, and that so much had been stolen from him. But it's the second part of that meeting that changed everything for me. His mother started talking about the cost just to get him home. And so he needed a special wheelchair. He needed a special van. He needed a new ramp to their North Philly row home. The doors needed to be widened. They needed to have new electrical receptacles installed to keep his breathing machine working. And so I started thinking about this idea of the actual cost of gun violence. And people might not care about the Kevin Johnsons of the world, a young Black teenager from North Philly, but maybe they care that we're all paying a literal price because most gunshot victims don't have private insurance. So we're all actually paying that $1 million as soon as a bullet hits bone, we're all paying a piece of that. And so I wanted to use that as a pill in the applesauce to get people to care about gun violence in a way they hadn't before. But 2 years into writing this book, I suffered a heart attack at age 38. Healthy, former college athlete, no physical markers, high blood pressure, no high cholesterol, nothing. Some soft plaque broke off and a blood clot filled my artery. And in trying to understand how I arrived in that moment with death bearing down on me, my then 5 going on 6-year-old daughter, Nola, who's 13 now, was asking me, Daddy, how'd you almost die? What happened? And I made a promise to her when she was still in the womb that I'd always be honest with her, that I would tell her the truth no matter what. And so in searching for my own truth and my own answer, I had to engage with what was really bearing down on my heart. And what was bearing down on my heart was collecting all those bits and pieces of all the trauma that I've covered and seen, all the bodies of young Black boys who look just like me, and a family history going back 100 years to the Jim Crow South, where gun violence has visited my family almost every single generation. And there I was as a young journalist in a high-stress industry, coming off of Trayvon Martin and Ferguson and Michael Brown and all that long string of violence that we experienced. And that was sitting on me, and so my heart couldn't bear it. And so that moment forever shifted me personally, but it certainly shifted this book. It was about the true cost, and it ended up being about the cost we're all paying, but the trauma that we carry. And so it's 1,000 ways to die. A bullet is one, but there's the violence of segregation. There's the violence of lack of access to quality health care and water. There's the violence of experiencing those ripples. You were a gunshot victim, but your mother is touched. Your neighbor is touched. We're all touched. And what does it mean to carry that? And so in this book, I'm telling the story of how guns and gun violence has shaped the black experience in this country.
That's amazing. Give it up for Tremaine for his journey.
It's honestly, like, when I say a pleasure to be here, I'm thankful to literally be here.
Yeah.
So,
and I join you in that. I know when I was shot, my hospital bills were $22,000. And I went through 6 different surgeries. And too often we forget about not just the trauma, but the financial costs and the burden that puts on too many families. In your book, you talk a lot about specific cities like Chicago and Philly. And I'm just curious, what inspired you to dive deeper into those neighborhoods? And was there any intricacies of why you chose that?
So what I did with how I chose these cities, the cities chose me. And so what I'm doing is I'm charting my own family's course through the Great Migration. And so we begin with my heart attack and widening the aperture of what violence really is. And in searching for how guns historically have shaped our lives and experiences, I went back to the Jim Crow South, where my grandmother's 12-year-old brother was shot and killed in a sundown town in 1922. 12 years old, sent off to run errands, and ended up being gunned down. And in my research, I'm gonna tell you, brother, the one thing that sticks with me is I discovered his death certificate, and it says age 12, cause of death, gunshot wounds. And those words together, the innocence of youth with gunshot wounds. And I can't help but think about Tamir Rice, another 12-year-old boy, shot down by police with a toy gun in Cleveland, Ohio, right? And his chubby little face, and imagining what Cornelius's face must have looked like. And my great-grandparents were tenant farmers, working land they'd never owned. And so they were toiling away, have their son snatched away by white supremacists. They then joined the waves of the Great Migration, landing from Georgia, first to Philadelphia and then South Jersey. And then in 1951, 2 decades later, my grandmother's second brother was shot and killed by a state trooper. Teenager, 17 years old, McClinton Woods. And the headline struck me the same way the Ferguson and Mike Browns, all these inexplicable deaths. The headline said, "Trooper's gun kills youth," right? The ambiguity, diminishing not just McClinton's humanity, but also resolving any accountability on the stance of the police. So we're going from the Deep South, and now we're in Philadelphia. And along the way, I'm speaking to how the country was shaping around us and how black folks were shaping this country, and what black folks were discovering after they migrated north to the so-called Promised Land. And then 20 years after that, my grandparents had an apartment in Camden, New Jersey that they were renting. And a guy came and left a deposit for $160 and disappeared for weeks. He came back wanting his money back, and my grandfather told him that it's non-refundable. I'll see you in court. A court date was actually set, but instead of meeting my grandfather in court, he came back and shot and killed him. So already, my grandmother, I get choked up thinking about it. My grandmother had lost 2 brothers and a husband to murder, right? And what it means to carry that weight and still be the centerpiece of a family of 8, right? This huge family, what it means to press forward. But still 20 years after that, in 1996, my stepbrother was shot and killed. A girl put a bullet in the back of his head. And then in the early 2000s, I had a cousin who was murdered in Atlantic City. And his brother was involved in an attempted robbery turned murder, so now he's spending his life in prison. And so we think about the various forms of violence that we've experienced through the migration, from sundown towns in Jim Crow to armed wing of the government, the police and the state, right? Communal violence. And then into the early 90s, gang and drug violence, right? And what it means, again, to carry that weight. And so in so many ways, in telling my own family story, I'm also tracking the story of Black America writ large. And even while we're grappling city by city, era by era, with the weight of the hurt, it is still shaped by the great joy of what it takes to make a way where there is no way as black folks in this country.
Wow. Unfortunately, just to give y'all a few stats to add some texture to that, 1 in 5 Americans have been exposed to gun violence. This is now the leading cause of death for black youth in America, all youth, but black youth since 2006. Leading cause of death for black men under 44. It's now the leading cause of death for pregnant women ahead of childbirth complications. primarily connected to domestic violence, and now it's the leading cause of newly disabled Americans. So this is a huge crisis that is raging through our communities. I will say the bright side is that the last 2 years, we've seen a 30% reduction in homicides. And some of the steepest reductions have been in Black and brown communities. And so I want to pivot a little bit and ask you maybe to talk a little bit more about some of the solutions and policy that you explore in your book.
One thing I tried to be intentional about with this book is not be prescriptive, not necessarily put policy positions forward. For me, the main key is addressing the trauma that we carry and identifying the source of that hurt and trauma and the role the gun plays in exacerbating that. But one thing is clear: in places with fewer guns, there are fewer gun deaths, right? And so we also understand this Swiss cheese nature of gun laws in this country. There is no standard federal law when it comes to guns. And so you have feeder states like, say, Mississippi, where you can just walk in and get you a gun the same day, and uber restrictive cities like, say, Chicago. But then there are these pipelines directly from those cities and states to those other ones. I heard a few novel ideas about that I think make sense. Why not title guns the way you title cars? And hold everyone responsible every step of the way the same way you would a car. Makes sense to me, right? Limiting perhaps the number of guns produced each year. We know 4, 5, 6 million new guns are produced every single year, and they don't melt away. They don't rot. They stay in circulation. But when we think about cities like Baltimore and other cities that are seeing this precipitous drop, one thing they are doing well is they're arriving in these communities and engaging with those youth who are most likely to be either a victim or perpetrators of crime. There is nothing innately violent about these young people. But when you look at the transparent maps and you take the map of where the most hunger is and food insecurity, and where the lack of access to quality education is, and where the income gaps are widest, that's where you experience the most violence. And so the idea that you can have a trauma-informed approach to gun violence, engaging with those youth who are literally hungry, right? Literally cold, literally isolated economically and socially, engage with those young people. And also understanding that same impulse for self-defense that the white boys have, we're never shocked when we see a 18-year-old white boy with a rifle for Christmas. Or hearing a shop owner saying they want to protect themselves. Our young people live in communities where people are literally getting shot and killed every single day, right? And so we need to arrive to these young people understanding as holistically as possible the lives they're living.
That's amazing. All right, give it up for him one more time for Tremaine. I got one last question for you. What calls to action do you hope readers get from this book? And maybe a two-part question. You've shared your personal story, the story of Kevin. Is there any major story or part of this you want folks to take away? But yeah, feel free to dive into either or both of those.
Yeah, there isn't any one story. Now, this is a weighty book. It's not light reading, but it's necessary reading. And I think as much as gun violence is a vehicle for this story, it's the trauma that we're carrying and not identifying and not having healthy ways to process. I think about my own heart attack from what I was carrying. And post-heart attack, I learned to breathe deeply. I learned mindfulness, right? Realizing how stress wears down on us, right? Because of how we experience this country, that the average black person sleeps an hour and a half to 2 hours less than the average white person. And what that means in terms of cardiovascular disease and hypertension, right? But I think it's important for us to name and shame the thing, right? Point to the violence. Because if you let even the President of the United States in recent weeks, when he was talking about the threat of occupying major American cities with huge black populations, he said it doesn't matter if it's 5 years or 10 years or 2 years, these people are born to be criminal. And so unless we lay out the truth about American violence, not some mythological black on black violence, right? But American violence that's requisite, that's required before a trigger is ever pulled. We'll continue to be able to not hold people accountable and project onto ourselves what they project on us, which is some sort of innate criminality and violence. And so the big picture, the big answer, the big takeaway is ain't nothing wrong with us. If you want to understand what's wrong with us, let's look at the machinery built around us. And so as much as this is my story, this is our story. And even though we're grappling with the weight of death and violent death, it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. It hurts because of the joy and the love. Who else could have made a way where there was no way? right? And everything everyone loves about America, we created, right? So from whence we came is great beauty and strength. And that's why it hurts so bad. And all of that stolen promise and all of that chilled possibility is what I want to address. So you want to understand how we got here, this is how we got here.
I love it. All right, I got a call to action to y'all. I want you to look to your neighbor. Say, neighbor, there's nothing wrong with us. Say, neighbor, your story is our story. All right, now.
I got one more. Say, neighbor.
Get him.
Buy the book.
Buy the book.
The neighbor.
Buy the book.
And it's for sale.
I got one. My neighbor, sign my book.
My brother, I'm signing your book.
I got a pen right here. Here we go.
Thank you.
But you all give it up for Tremaine. He's going to be here signing his book.
Any questions before we go?
Sorry?
Any questions?
Oh, yes. Any audience questions? Come on up. Come on up, good sir.
Of course. Hi, my name is Nicholas French. I'm currently a volunteer for the annual legislative conference and currently working in Michigan to protect voter rights. Yeah,
that's good.
Thank you. But really, yeah, Michigan, Detroit, around that area. But I really wanted to ask, like, a big part of writing and storytelling, of course, I see the product and all of the experiences that led to the product. And it's a magnificent product. Pulitzer, everything that you've done, the stories that you've told. But I'm really curious. I'm trying to get back into my writing habit and pursuing my passion for storytelling. I'm wondering, like, what is your day-to-day? Like, how do you get yourself to write even when you feel like all of the things that you've gone through are trying to get you not to do that? How do you push through to get to your passion?
That's a great question. It's kind of a craft question and a motivation question. And I think at first I wasn't doing a good job of balancing any of it. And that's how I ended up having a heart attack, steeped in the pain of other people's pain, but also my own family's pain. And so a clarity for me set in after almost dying, facing my own mortality, where I understood the story in a different way, so it was much easier. But practically speaking, have you ever heard of the Pomodoro method? So the Pomodoro method is, you have a little alarm. Have you heard of it? So you take an alarm and you actively work for 20 minutes, take 5-minute break. 20 minutes, 5-minute break, 20-minute, 5-minute break. And by the time you blink, you've been writing for an hour. But also this was an exercise for me with my grandfather's murder. And this was like a central point in the story. I always understood the absence that his death created, but it wasn't until I started writing this book that I cried like a baby, like a sob for my grandfather. Right? So we're talking about in the process of trying to tell this story, but having to tangle and wrestle with what it means to truly be vulnerable, right? Vulnerability. And I sobbed because I never got to ask him a question. I never got to hug him, right? So part of this process was a purging, a literal opening up of myself and pouring myself onto the page. And so once that started, though, there was no stopping. And so it's craft, practically, Pomodoro method, 20 minutes, 5 minutes. But then the real work was, and how honest am I going to be? I'm telling family stories in this book that have never seen the light of day outside of our family, right? So also dealing with, what is my mother, my uncles, how are they going to feel about this? Hopefully we see it as, putting respect to my family's name and putting to the record what we've been through and what we've overcome. But yeah, man, this was a lot, man. It took a lot. It took a lot.
All right, we got one more. Madam?
My apologies, I didn't catch the beginning of your presentation, but what I did hit really home. But my question is just want to get your thoughts. I mean, I understand that gun violence is bad, but we have people that have been in the military, weapons trained. Why are we not doing a better job of teaching our children about weapons and weapons safety and gun ownership to protect ourselves? This is very serious what's going on right now. We need to be able to protect ourselves. You may have a little pistol or a little bat or something, but you need to be able to see people coming at you and have that training, weapons training. I know gun violence is bad, but you still need to protect yourself.
No, part of this book.
What, from other people or from government?
Yep.
Okay.
So I would say, this book doesn't say guns are bad or good. Guns bring us closer to death and violence. They've always feared an armed black population. And so in those early days, and I talk about this in the early chapters of the book, the great lengths that this society has gone through, policy-wise, to keep guns out of hands of black people. We think of 300,000 Union soldiers, black men, who returned from the war with their rifles, the first line of defense against the Klan and other paramilitary groups. We think about the Tulsa Race Massacre, the World War I veterans who were the first to take the hill and try to defend their communities, right? Time and again, we think about the Deacons of Defense who protected Dr. King and the civil rights workers, right? There is no surprise that what I've seen over the last 2 decades of covering uprisings and rebellions, that the police do treat protesters that they know are unarmed with a special kind of violence. When you think about the Bundy Ranch from years ago, when white folks took over this ranch and federal agents arrived and they had rifles trained their heads, and how they negotiated with them. And so certainly there is a space, and we don't blink or flinch when we see white America with their guns, teaching their kids. But on one hand, we both know how we've experienced the lethal end of a gun. And, but I, to your point, I think if there are any peoples in need of protection, it will be us.
And if I can jump in, one of the major problems of seeing all this youth violence is because we have unsecured firearms. So we're finding that unsecured firearms are the primary guns being found on crime scenes. These are parents that don't lock the guns up, adults that don't have them stored in a storage box, or have them just sitting in their glove compartment unsecured. Someone breaks in, steals them. That shows up at the crime scene. So the other side of the coin is we got to teach people responsible gun ownership, because that's how our kids are getting the guns. It's not, the majority are not coming from a boogeyman in the alley. It's coming from nightstands and closets and under pillows. So there's two sides to it. I definitely agree. I also will say, when it comes to protecting your home, the best way to protect your home is what's called a known deterrent. And the bad thing about a gun is not a known deterrent. Nobody knows you have a gun until they're already in your bedroom. So we need to teach ourselves also about how do we protect our homes from being easy targets for burglary, attacks, those types of other things. So a fence is a known deterrent.
A mean dog.
A dog is a known deterrent. A bathroom light on when you're out of town, known deterrent, right? So security system, or even if you can't afford a security system, a sign that says it's a security system. I got a house now, I don't have a dog in there, but I got a beware dog sign up there. You ain't gonna know. But we have to think about how do you prevent a violent interaction in the first place, and we really have to be more diligent about that too. But again, a gun it's our last resort, but let's not be fooled to think it's our first resort when protecting our families.
All right, so thank y'all very much.
All right, y'all give it up one more time for Tremaine.
Thank you.
Great job, brother.
Appreciate you. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. And books will be available over here in Mahogany. Thank you. All right, thank you, brother.
Hello? Hello? Who are you? You're smiling. I like that. I like that energy. Anybody got to smile like this young lady in the front? Hi, I'm Michelle Clark, and I am the Executive Director of Federal Alliances at Cornerstone On Demand. And I love that we're here and we're talking about small businesses, large businesses. How many people in the audience have small businesses or know somebody that has small business? Okay, great. So you're in the right place. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Nicole to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Anthony Townsend. I am the president of AQE Solutions. We're a management consulting firm serving small and mid-cap businesses in their pursuit of growth. And so we're really excited about having this conversation around what do we need to do to preserve the growth and sustainability of small businesses in this new environment.
Yes, and I'm from a large business, but I am a serial entrepreneur. After hours, I have a communications firm, and I'm also the new president of the National Contract Management Association. Woo!
Yes, woohoo!
And if you don't know what that association is, you should. But I say that only to say is, my first meeting that I went to, I actually met Nicole. And the power of networking, and the power of getting out of your shell and talking to people. It doesn't matter if you're large, big, but those are the sort of communications and locations you should be in to have open dialogue, casual dialogue. You get the ear and you get to build relationships. And that's how we actually got on this stage together. And that was a little over a year, right? A year ago. So things can happen very fast. And when you're top of mind of a large, and there's so many smalls out there, but when you're top of mind of a large and a big deal comes or any deal comes, she will get the first call. That's where you want to be. You want to be in the top 5 calls that others think about because you are the best in your position or your services.
Well, Michelle is an ideal partner and in a large environment. As a small business owner myself, but serving small businesses, it is really often difficult to crack the door to have a big business answer your phone call. And so having someone that is a small business advocate in a leadership role at a large company is all we could hope for. But there are a lot of things happening that are threatening our small business community. And so today, with the short amount of time we have, we want to talk about the Rule of Two and what impact the FAR rewrite might have on small businesses. If you're not in the government contracting space, the FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation Guide, which tells the government all the policies and procedures about how to spend our good hard-earned tax dollars. And so right now the FAR states that the Rule of Two is if 2 small businesses respond to an opportunity and say that they are and prove that they are capable of doing work that the government is looking to buy, then the government has to put it aside for a small business, which is a wonderful opportunity for small businesses. So you can compete with a big just by virtue of having that competition. That is a huge thing for us to hold on to. But that FAR is now being rewritten, and so we don't know what the future holds. And so we're trying to make sure that you are a part of the advocacy of ensuring that small businesses still maintain that Rule of Two. Michelle, did you want to?
No, that's exactly right. It is very important to advocate for yourself now more than ever. Write to your congressman, congressperson. Be a voice of making sure you are seen and heard, even more so amongst yourselves. Maybe you need to collaborate together to have a bigger voice. The Rule of Two is at stake. I mean, as of yesterday, there was some legislation or something going around because the contracts that are vehicles that might be moving to GSA, now they're not mandating this happens. So now if it's not on the books to actually make them do this, they probably won't, unfortunately. So you have to rise above the rest to make sure your services, your skills are needed no matter what. And they can only get it from you. But again, you may need to collaborate and go in masses to make sure your voice is heard.
And so we want to make sure you have some language around your advocacy. So the FAR Part 19 is where small business, that's their Rule of Two. Then we wanted you to also know about the Executive Order 14240. We all know how many executive orders have been put out since the administration began, and so it's hard to keep up. But this executive order calls for the consolidation of procurement of common goods and services under GSA. Now, when you use GSA, when the government uses GSA to make a purchase, they are not required to set it aside for a small business.
Right.
That is already on the books. And so our advocacy is to ensure that anything that's covered under this executive order, we have that same Rule of Two, that they have the ability to count it. Right. Your goals, if you're meeting the federal agency, is going to get to count that acquisition that under its small business goals. It's important to make sure that GSA knows, hey, we want to make sure small businesses are still getting a bite at the apple. But right now, there's no real advantage for the federal government to have to go to GSA for small business. And so we want to make sure that you understand the rule of two, we want to make sure small businesses have the ability to still compete the rule of two under the rule of two, and that the executive order 14240, we want to make sure.
Everybody write that down.
Executive order 14240, that small businesses still are you're giving credit for competing the work to a small business. We want to make sure small businesses are still covered under that executive order.
Right, and if you want more information, come see Michelle or Nicole. And if you're around at 4 o'clock, we're going to be in the main stage with government officials from HHS, past from GAO, and we'll be going even deeper into this, but it's more about knowing about how to use AI and trying to help your procurement operations and solutions. So come see us at 4 o'clock. Who's going to be there? Possibly? Okay, I want everybody out there. You have a question? Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. The FAR is being rewritten. So my understanding is that the FAR there's a group, the government is a government group.
Council.
It's a council. The FAR Council is being used to rewrite that. So the question was, how can we make an impact on this council's rewrite? And at this point, my best thinking around this is that we need to collectively have a voice and write to our legislators to ensure that the FAR rewrite still supports the growth and sustainability of small businesses.
And I believe sometimes they put it out in the SAM, an RFI, or some request to review parts of it. There is a council, though, and they were at NCMA's conference. And if you follow up, I can maybe get you the name of that person.
Two things. Yes.
Yeah. Acquisition.gov is where they're putting all the changes. And we're getting a hook. Everybody see the hook?
Acquisition.gov is where you can see the FAR rewrites, and you can comment right now. And when it's finished,
I'm getting on. Thank you.
Then there'll be rulemaking where public comment is available. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Hello, hello. So glad to see you. I've been waiting all day to see you and to talk to you and to bring you some love. My name is Mary Copeland. I'm an author of 3 books. One is called Inspired by Love. Another one is called A Man's Journey. And another one is called A Woman's Journey. And I want to share with you today. They all came from poetry pieces. And then I extended the poetry into a book that will encourage and help you to feel love anytime you read it. First one I want to read is Inspired by Love. But I want to tell you about the other ones that are coming forth, the books that are coming forth. I have A Man's Journey. This is the poetry piece, and the book will be ready next month. And next month, I have a flyer that has information that you can order this book next month. And the second book is called Woman's Journey. This is the poetry pieces, and you can order that next month. God bless. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit of love now. We've had a very awesome afternoon, and we've been we've shared some pointers for our journey. Our journey will continue after this session. Our journey will continue after this conference. Our journey will continue after this day. And we have been thoroughly encouraged on what we want to do and what our purpose is and what our maybe next book is for our journey. But this is a little love I want to give you. Each of the poems have a story, and this story is while writing my dissertation at the end of the work, I had a blank, and I could not think what the next word would be. And I said, oh no. So I called on the Almighty God, who is faithful and gives me joy, who loves me and gives me grace. And so I saw a word love on my desk, and I said, what do I know about love? And this is what the Almighty God gave me, and I want to give to you, so that whenever you in a crunch, or whenever you need Him, whenever you need anything, you can just call on the Lord, because He says, the radiance of love has overtaken me. The silence of love has encompassed me. The resilience of love has tutored me, and the patience of love has awakened me. Before I was born, I was known by love. While I was a sinner, I was commanded by love. When I was wayward, I was sought by love. After I was repentant, I was greeted by love. In my trials, love gave me inspiration. In my tribulation, love gave me consolation. In my temptations, love gave me liberation. And in my testing, love gave me determination. Prone to wander, love is seeking me. Prone to forget, love is teaching me. Prone to forsake, love is reaching me. And prone to wander, love is assuring me. In my boundness, love is boundless. In my limitness, love is limitless. In my finiteness, love is infinite. In my indefiniteness, love is definite. And so I want to thank you all for listening to me. I think that's a little. Okay, thank you. All right, bless you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tiffany L. Warren. This year, I celebrate 20 years in publishing. I've published over 30 novels, women's fiction, young adult, inspirational fiction. In 2023, I switched over to historical fiction because it felt like legacy work. So my first historical fiction novel is called The Unexpected Diva. It's about the first Black prima donna, Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. Has anybody heard of you've heard of her? She was called the Black Swan on stage. She had a 3-octave voice. She toured the country twice before the Civil War. She was born on a plantation in Mississippi, and she was freed at a very young age and educated in Mississippi by her former mistress. I did not set out to be an activist when I wanted to write historical fiction. I wanted to write, legacy work to leave for my children. But that was before I realized in 2025 there was a concerted effort to erase our history. Some of you may have heard about the National Park Service website that tried to erase Harriet Tubman's accomplishments on the Underground Railroad. One thing that stuck out to me, not so much that they tried to erase Harriet, because they did leave her on there. They added other people who did help with the Underground Railroad, but they tried to erase the reference to the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which was the law that allowed slave catchers to come and kidnap black folks and sell them south to plantations. That fugitive slave law of 1850 is heavily referenced in my book because that is one peril that caused Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield much stress when she was touring the country because she was a formerly enslaved person. They can't erase us. They can't erase what Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield did. They can't erase our past. They can't erase our present, nor can they erase the things that we're going to do in our future. So that's why it's so important for us to read these kinds of books about our history, to own the physical copies in our house. And I know a lot of us like ebooks and audio books. I'm a fan of ebooks myself, but those can be changed behind the scenes. So own a physical copy in your house. The theme of this book is to allow your gift to make room for you. Some of you have heard that before. That's what Eliza did. She had a gift that was unheard.
So gutters of greatness, that's an